Welcome to the Indie Musician Summit 2021 with your host, Kate Westwood, brought to you by Westwood Management.
Welcome back to the Indie Musician Summit. It's Kate here again, and as I always say, another fabulous speaker. I'm so excited to introduce you to Jaz Yates. She is, well, I'm actually going to let her tell you everything that she does, but she works with artists as a manager, and I'm sure 100 other things. Jaz, welcome to the summit.
Hello, thank you for having me. So my name's Jaz. I am an artist and events manager, and I run and own my business, JY Management Group, and have done for, almost 5 years now. In the business, we work with mainly emerging and developing artists, and we offer a bit of a different alternative to artist management. So it's a lot more hands-on, it's a lot more being a team and working together to build an artist career, which is really fantastic. I find such a great value in doing that. And it means that I have my full-time clients that I work with, and we work solidly together throughout the year. And then I also have 8-week courses and mentorships and groups and things like that, where our clients get to work solely with me in short periods of time and get to learn the foundations of what they need to know, which is really, really great. I've been loving doing that recently.
Okay, so interesting. We're going to definitely get into more of that. But tell me, you started when you were 18. What made you wake up one day and say, oh, I want to be an artist manager? Are you a musician? Was music part of your world? Give us a bit of the background of Jaz.
Yeah. So I grew up as somebody who played flute and a singer, lol. And yeah, I basically went through high school as that music kid, the drama kid as well. And I basically got to the end of high school. I trained to be a singing teacher, and I had that qualification before I left. And I was like, okay, what do I like to do? I like music, and I was given an opportunity in high school a few times to manage the backstage, and a lot of people came back with the feedback to me of like, wow, you're really great at that, you're really great at showing direction, all that sort of stuff. And so my interpretation was, wow, Jaz, you're really great at being bossy or telling people where to go and how to get it done. So I was like, how do we make those two work together? And I went and did a Bachelor of Entertainment Management in Melbourne. And while I was there, I was like, artist management is what seems like fits really, really well. I was exposed to every different type of the industry, and that was what my focus was. And then one day we did a uni event, and I went up to one of the bands who had was actually female fronted at the time, and I was like, hey, do you need any help? And they were like, sure, because they were going to take it for free. So that's how I got started, which was really, really great. Such a great introduction. And we sort of all grew together, and that's what sort of formed the way I do business now. It's like we grow together as a band. So it's really, really good.
I love that. I will get back to that. Just my cat has found a noisy toy, and so I need to claim that before it.
That's a good idea.
Super cute, and normally he just sleeps when I'm having a meeting, but this not today.
Why not? Good love cats. Oh my gosh.
You want to say hi, Link? My pirate cat. He's only got one eye.
Oh, he's so cute.
Hello.
Oh, he's adorable.
Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah, that's what we do.
That's
all right. Thank you.
No, this is now going to just make the whole thing. It's just the cat's just going to take over the whole.
So when did you first love cats, and how many cats? Too many. When did you become a cat lady? And I actually, because I work in radio, I did ask once when we first got Link, what's the definition of cat lady? Like, I'm slightly afraid of becoming a cat lady, but what is that? And someone texted in and said, oh, it's when you have more than the council approved number of cats. And I was like, okay, I'm fine. If like 4 is the council, then I've only got 1, so I'm fine.
Wow, that's really interesting. That is, I suppose that's a really good definition, because then
yeah.
If the council's saying no more cats, that's about as many cats as you can have.
I mean, I haven't put him like on a piece of clothing or anything like that, which I know lots of people do, like cat pillows or socks or something like that. I feel like that's next level, but I definitely I'm a bit obsessed, and we'll be throwing him a pirate themed birthday party when he turns 1. So
Love that.
okay, let's get back to this. Okay, so studying at uni to get an experience, but then just looking for an opportunity and taking an opportunity, asking that band if you can work with them, and they obviously were like, yes, anyone who's giving us their time would be so beneficial. So how did that morph into running your own business and being like a manager on your own rather than just working for another company? Give us a bit of insight in, how maybe your experience in that, but then also, is that typical for managers? For people who are interested in learning about it.
Yeah, I think there's no typical way that a manager has ever gotten into the industry. I think there's no this is the path that we're going on, and that purely comes from the background of the industry, where a lot of people are DIY or they've come up through the ranks of other people, and then now there's music unis and things like that that we've both gone to, but yeah, I think I sort of decided that when I started with my band that it needed to become something that had its own voice as well. And part of that was because the first band I worked with was pop punk. And look, we've all listened to pop punk. We've all, got back in the day, listened to all the, Paramours and things like that. But I came from, Hottest 100, well, not even then, God, that's what I am now, indie, Hottest 100, Triple J. But back then I'd come from the top 20 commercial radio sort of vibe. So I definitely saw myself wanting to create a brand and an identity that was going to work across all bands, because I didn't want to just work with them. I think that sort of became more of a established thing when I started working with multiple bands, because there was a need for it then, because it needed to be this is this event and that is that event, and this is what all my clients are doing, and it's in the one hub, and it wasn't spamming my poor Instagram friends on my personal Instagram. It was this is, if you want to know, here it is, and I'm going to sort of bring some things into my own personal one every now and then. So I think that was where my desire to do that was. And I think starting it while I was at uni was really, really great, because we were doing artist management courses and events courses and art law and things like that while I was there and had the band, and so I could reference back what we were doing. I even used the bands as uni assignments a few times. That's actually how I started with my second band, who I was with 2 and a bit years. And because, there's a uni assignment we had to do for artist management, and it was just you had to have a brand new project that had never released anything. And I knew of a friend that was going to do that. And I was like, hey, can I jump on board? And then after we did the release, I'm like, can I stay on board, please? So yeah, that's sort of how my direction sort of went. And I don't think many other people around me have done that, which is the best part about the music industry.
Absolutely. I think I remember being at uni, and the first class we actually ever did was called the Scope of Entertainment. And they talked about, these are all the things you could do. And one thing that really stood out to me is that you can go and get a job at a label or at a A&R company, or, and you can just go and fill a role, or you can see a gap in the industry and you can find a way to plug that gap or meet that need and start your own thing. And so I love that there is a broad range of that. And so there are definitely, managers that work with bigger companies that, that are connected with labels. And then there's people like you and I who work independently, run our own businesses, from our home, and, look to see how we can support artists in that space. I'd love to know how you go about choosing an artist that you would like to work with. How does that work for you? Do people email you and say, hey, check us out, we'd love to work with you? Or is it just on, oh, I heard them at that show and I want to jump on board? What is that process of finding and engaging with a possible new artist?
Oh, see, that's such an interesting question right now, because obviously the music climate has changed a lot. So, pre-pandemic, it was sort of you'd go to shows, you'd see a buzz about this band, you'd go to one of their shows, maybe see how they were live, and I would go, okay, well, I might reach out to them and ask them how they're going, what they think of things, if they have, management, what management, all that sort of thing. And then I also had the other side of that where I had people approaching me and saying, hey, can we have a chat, that sort of thing. I think one thing people don't I personally feel is I don't love it when people email me and are like, hey, so I want management, can we chat? And I'm like, look, if you think you need management, you probably don't need it. And, that's just based off my experience with so many different artists that have come to me like that. And you're like, too early. Like, you don't need management. You just need somebody to tell you how to do it and when and how, which, I'm assuming we both had that sort of experience. And that's why I created my 8-week development, my 8-week Artist Foundations program. Sorry, my brain just went off then. Because I was seeing all these artists that were like, I need management. We need management right now. And I was going, no, you need the foundations first, and you need to be having your branding and having your social media up and your numbers up and your Spotify and connecting with the right people to develop your audience and your brand and your music before we even start to really make something of this and build your career. Because so many of the people that approach me are people that have great music but horrible branding, or great music, great branding, and then just a complete lack of execution. And so I definitely see, when I look at working with clients, that's what I look at. It's okay, do you have the foundations? Yes. Okay, do I have time on my roster to do this? Is this something that I, without a doubt, know and back that this will happen within the next 5 to 10 years? But yeah, as I said, now that's changed a lot. It's a lot more online social proofing. And by that, I mean seeing what people are doing online and showing us that they've, gotten the Triple J play, they've gotten the Rage, they've gotten the, the whatever, how many thousand followers, they've gotten the Spotify playlisting, that sort of thing. And that being what shows us that you're going somewhere. Mm-hmm. And then also the fact that they're able to brand and market that to a space where it's consistently coming back in our faces. That's what I want to see. It's if you can figure out how to market yourself well, that I keep remembering about you, and I can go, that band that did that thing, and I can say that to one of my other bands, and they're like, oh yeah, that's a really good idea, we should do that for Instagram too. That's when you've got your branding right and you've got your music right, I think. That's what I'm interested, at least.
Okay, so what you're saying is, if we've got people on the summit right now who are thinking, do I need management? How do I prep? What you're saying there is that there's work to do, and that's helpful for you no matter where you're at in your career, is to not just think about having great music, but actually about the business side. So you're saying the business side of what you're trying to do in the music business. I have a question for you about, being a manager and taking a risk on someone. So I used the big example of Scooter Braun, took a risk on Justin Bieber, saw him on YouTube, I heard a story that he called every high school in Canada until he could find the school that they went to, and he flew up there. And this is just a 14-year-old kid. He's not making any money, but Scooter Braun took a risk on that artist because I guess in his mind he could see what Justin could be, and of course has been a part of that, and that's the story is there. But what is that like for you? Do you always feel like you're taking a risk, or in terms of you and your capacity to pay your bills and make a livable income? Because I'm sure you're going to do a lot of work that you're probably not going to get paid for. What does that look like for you in the process of choosing an artist to work with?
Yeah, well, I think that is something that a lot of people in the industry don't have a perception of, is how much, say, a manager at my level or your level, or even a manager who's working with bands that are a lot bigger, we don't really have the income that is actually supporting us full time. I'm a part-time nanny, which is ironic Oh, well, I find it ironic because it's pretty much the same job sometimes. It's a lot of being like, I'm not sure that's the right choice, okay?
Don't eat that.
Yeah, actually. Like, I think you should stop now. But yeah, like that is my main income and that's how I pay my rent. So when I look for artists, and you know, I now distinguish my artists as like my full-time management clients and the clients that, you know, I work with for a release or a few months or that sort of thing. And I purely had to do that because the full-time management clients are the clients that I know that I'm going to back no matter what, because I reckon that they will become something that is really special and really unique. Like, I believe that there is a career path there and the music there that we can push them towards it actually being something that can help pay my bills. So whether that's, you know, Triple J rotation and Spotify, like high Spotify streams or streaming in general, and then, you know, playing big shows and tours and things like that, like that's where the direction we're going on. And like with all of my full-time clients, we have those goals of like, okay, before we die or before we hit 80 and we want to have an impact, it's like we want to be playing arenas. We want to be playing, you know, these really big shows. We want to be touring, and like that's the big picture with my full-time clients, and I back them no matter what. And then, you know, my other clients are like 100%, I reckon they'll make it. It's just whether they're the exact fit for where I want to go. And also if I have time. I think like now I am at capacity with my full-time clients. I just can't put anybody else on that roster. And I didn't want to accept that. Like, I wanted to be able to still be giving and still be, you know, developing that. So yeah, it's a bit of a battle or a struggle to try and figure out who is the best person to be presenting forward and placing all your bets on, really, because it's a lot of unpaid work.
Yeah. And what you're saying there is you're thinking that, okay, this is going to pay off in 3 to 5 years time, you know, so I'm helping them invest in their business and in their career, and then it will pay off in 3 to 5 years time. And okay, I'm interested in what you were saying about, you know, taking a risk and jumping in and then having your roster full. What does that mean in terms of, like, what are you actually doing regularly for your artists? Do you do the PR and do you do everything for them? What are the main tasks that you would do within the space of serving a full-time management client?
Yeah, and that's actually such a diverse question, because obviously bands at different careers will have different team members, which means the more people we have on their team, the less work I have to do, which is great. But, you know, for the bands that I work with currently, they currently, because of the music climate, don't have a booking agent. We don't have a record label. We outsource PR, and we were outsourcing digital marketing. That's actually a service I'm now adding, because I'm like, well, I know the brand inside out. Let me do it. So what a full-time sort of role is with all of my clients is like fortnightly meetings or weekly meetings, consistent chats about what's going on, me keeping on top of everything that they're doing, talking with their teams, talking with distribution. I have a band that has a personalised distribution company, which is Believe. And like working with them to strategize, working with the industry and networking with those people to strategize about what my team is doing and like where we're going. Is it the right like decision right now? All of that sort of stuff. And then there's like the nitty gritty of like ordering merch, following up with the person who hasn't sent us a mix in 1 month, and you know, all that sort of stuff. I think the favorite part my bands love me doing is when somebody hasn't answered them, and then I get to be the meanie who goes like, excuse me, why haven't you? It's like, we've paid for a service, why haven't you delivered? and everybody just goes, oh. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I would say that every artist and manager relationship is going to be different. Exactly what you said, the level that they're at in their career, and also the capacity of that artist and that client. Some of them love social media and are really organized. Others are like, I can't write anything, I'm not good at that. And so what you're saying, the different team members are going to be needed differently for each client that you work with.
Yeah, and that is such a prevalent sort of topic for, say, a solo artist versus a band. Like solo artists was like moving into that was really hard for me because I just worked with bands where, solo artist only has one income to help support the budget. So it slows things down. There's also a solo artist means that you only have one other person's opinion, so you can get ideas done quicker, which is great. But, with bands, you've got 4 or 5 people committing to the budget, which is really great. You also have 4 or 5 people having an opinion, which is good and bad. They all have their different ways of working with me, and I'm closer with some than I am with others. And I have purposely made sure that my full-time management clients are the clients that I know I connect with and that will respect my thoughts and opinions, because that's really the only way that management works for the long term. You can be friendly and hear my thoughts and opinions and not really agree with them or agree with them for short periods of time, but it really has to gel for the full-time clients. Otherwise, I feel like I'm hitting my head against a brick wall sometimes. or you just like sitting there listening to music video concepts and you're like, this is so off-brand for something I'm comfortable with, but...
Well, would you say that, would you have a bit of a, how do I say this? For me, I have to like the person that I'm going to work with. And it helps if I don't hate the music. And again, that's personal preference. Where are you at with those two things?
Yeah, for me, I definitely really have to like the person, particularly the full-time management clients, and also be ethically aligned in some ways as well, because at the end of the day, that band and the people within it are also representing my business. And if one of those people in the band gets cancelled, God forbid, that reflects on me as well. But then also just working day to day, it's a lot easier to work with people that are really, really good friends. Which is, I'm sure you found as well, that's half of the towing the line and the battle as a manager of being friendly and connecting with your band. And then there's being too friendly and being too accessible and all that sort of stuff. And I learned that the hard way with my first band and sort of with my second band as well. It's sort of you become really friendly, but then when it comes to time where I have to do my job and be I think that's a bad idea and this is why, that doesn't work if you're besties, because people get offended.
Yeah, absolutely. I have this thing if I say, but my job is to help you achieve your goals, but I'm probably going to offer you a path or a map that you may not have considered. And so it's always up to you which way you choose to go, but I'm going to give you the recommendation of, I think this is the best way to get that. Even if it's new information or it might be a bit uncomfortable, you get to choose, because I'm here to serve you and your vision, but I'm going to suggest the best way to get there, but you have to decide that. So for me, that's a bit of how I work, is, that sense of coaching, the desire to, what are your goals? What are your vision? Where do you want to go? All right, this is what I recommend.
Yeah.
If you don't want to do that, that's fine. But I will tell you, if you don't go this is what could happen. It may take longer. It may cost more, but, that's fine. If we want to do that, that's okay. But, then you need to recognize that you're choosing to go that way. And, it's that back and forth of helping to give the hard word, but also but it's your thing. I'm working for you and I'm happy to do that. But also our jobs are to present the truth and to give insight into the industry and to tell them when they're being dumb.
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually something that I touched on with Monica, who we both know in my podcast that I've just started up. We were talking about this exact exchange and the difference between, say, myself, who is, a manager and has been for multiple years with multiple bands, and I do have the differences in my clients. Like the clients that I have that are, monthly, or like they work for a short period of time for like a release or whatever, I have that same approach that you do of like, this is my industry advice. You can take it, you can not. It's up to you. This is where you'll go if you go here, and this is where you go if you go there. Best of luck. That's the literally that's the strategy I have with them. But then with my full-time clients, it's so much more like integrated, because I like their success is my ultimate success. Like I'll make money off that. I will grow from that, all that sort of stuff. So I tend to fight a lot more for my voice in that, to the point where one of my bands is actually having a conversation about an album and whether we're going to release that next year or not. And we were really going at it, and I just would not back down. I was like, no, we cannot release next year. And I was like, this is why. And then we all actually had to like go away and come back to the conversation. And last night we came back to the conversation and we both got what we wanted. And it was great. I even like stopped in the middle of the meeting. I'm like, hang on, I need to do a happy dance because you listened to me. I'm like, we came to the middle, and like, usually I will either do that with my full-time clients, or I'll be like, I'm the sort of person who's a little bit petty. Who'll just be like, okay, you don't want to do it my way. Fine. If I'm right though, you have to tell me I'm right. Which, we do that on really minor things, and we definitely get a good laugh out of it at the end of the day. And they're like, you're right, Jaz. I'm like, yes.
Well, so much about relationship there, and that's something that everywhere everyone I'm talking to, they're often saying, the relationships last longer than a song. The relationships last longer than an album. They last longer than a tour. And if you've actually invested in good people, good relationships, you spent time developing connections with your fans, with your audience, with your super fans, with your team, and with the wider industry, that's actually what's going to last and sustain you over the time, rather than just a really great song or a really great live show. And so important with your manager to build that relationship, which is why it's those meetings. Absolutely. Getting to know their life, and connecting with them on that level, but also being able to, bring the truth.
Yes. And for them to be able to respect it. I think that's the thing. Like it's that difference in you being too friendly and them going, oh yeah, I hear that, but like, don't hurt my feelings. It's sort of like, no, I'm going to hurt your feelings because you need to hear this. Because there are those really hard conversations where I've had to be like, so that didn't work in the best way that it could, and we didn't get the best amount of money from that, or like best value out of that, because you didn't do this and you didn't do that. Why was that? How are we going to do better next time? And like helping them to grow through that, and identifying the fact that we can't keep doing that because that's not the best model to work with. Mm-hmm. My bands don't like it when I do that, but they eventually know at the end of the day, they're like, yeah, okay.
That tough love. And look, one thing that I come across a lot is this whole thing of these expectations. We think if we release a single, it's going to equal this. If we, play a show, it's going to equal this. If we get a label deal, it's going to, but very often the reality of what happens is way under our expectations, because we live in the fame mindset. We live in the, get discovered, Tones and I 0 to 1 billion, in just a short period of time. Although we don't know, the background of all the work that she did. Just as an example, we see the finished product, but we haven't been a part of all the work that's been involved behind the scenes. How do you help, or how have you encountered this issue of reality not meeting expectations, and how do you help artists through that?
Yeah, I think that whole reality versus expectations is actually why I started my podcast, because it's called Your Music, Your Business. And it's like coming back to that like aspect for people of like, no, you have to treat it like a business, and this is why, and sort of connecting with people like yourself and like explaining why it's a business. But with my clients, it's like half of the time is managing expectations and managing what we are going to be doing and trying to achieve. We go into every single release with goals of what we want to be setting across everything. So whether that be followers on social media, or a growth in streaming, or hitting these particular premieres, or hopefully getting Spotify rotation, like we go into every release like that. Most of the time I start those conversations with my bands and go, so, hey, what do you want to do? And they're like, oh, we want Spotify rotation. We definitely reckon we're going to get that. And I'll be like, so I don't think the song's that strong. or more so, like, I will think that the song's that strong, but I'm like, I don't think Triple J is in that space right now where they're going to listen to that. So it is about sort of seeing where our current goals are and managing that from the start. And then I help my clients sort of go, okay, we're in the middle of a release. This is what's happening. And then at the end, assessing as well. And I think what's really interesting is most of my artists will get into the middle of a release and I'll go, so how do you reckon it's going? And they're like, oh, not so good. And I'm like, I'm sorry, did you not just get added to Australian Guitar Mag? Like where, like that is it within our goals, guys. Like we ticked it all off. And I actually do reports for my clients now after every release. Or I try to anyway, it's a lot of work. But we like look at the budget and we look at all the stats and the streaming and see how much it's grown. And I think for them, that helps them see where they've gone, but then also justify where the money has been spent. But also in some cases, it has the opposite effect where they go, what? We spent $10,000 on one single? I didn't know we did that. It was just like, oh no.
You should know that because you own the business, so you've got to know the numbers. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, or more so, like you guys fronted that. Like I know it was in different chunks, but you know you've like paid up for that, right?
So good. I love that. Now, let's talk a little bit about, we're going to go into some kind of tips and tricks and strategies as we kind of come to the second half of this. But what's happening in the industry right now that you're loving, that you think, oh, this is really cool, this would be a great thing, this is a new trend or something that's working well? Is there anything that stands out to you that the Indie Musician Summit members and attendees could go, oh, cool, I could grab that? Or love your thoughts.
Yeah, I think it's really worth noting that the music industry is in such a hard space right now, and that I think I've been talking with a lot of people about this, and it's what a lot of people aren't seeing is that the music industry is actually in this year gone through more of a change and a growth and a disruption than say last year. Like last year, everybody just went, okay, we'll just press pause and we'll see how we go. But obviously this year has been on and off and people are freaking out, not knowing what they're doing. Yeah. Shows are impossible.
Here in Australia. So we'll have attendees from outside of Australia, but for people who don't know, for most of the big cities here in Australia, you know, Melbourne, Sydney, we're in dire straits.
Yeah, and even like that affects the places that are the other side of Australia, and also the rest of the music industry as a whole. Like I think the disruption that a lockdown created for everybody in the industry across every platform, it made budgets decrease. It just shifted live music entirely. And it's basically shifted that way that everybody does music and releases music. So what I love now though is that people are seeing that and actually sort of rallying around each other and creating spaces to connect and way more open to connecting and networking and that sort of thing. I think, you know, in the pop punk alt rock scene that I'm very much within with my bands, there's a space where the fans and the bands are more intermingling, and it's a lot of like Facebook groups and things like that, and people connecting through there and sharing vinyl and all that sort of stuff. Like those pages have grown humongously over the last 1 or 2 years. I think that is what, if anybody's going to get onto something, it's like find your niche in your area, sort of like, and just follow those people, like interact, engage, like create those conversations, because like that is what, that's not going to go away in a lockdown or in a pandemic, and will evolve as long as Facebook doesn't change the algorithm again.
Yes, absolutely. I love that when we were not able to meet in person and when all these things are stripped back, what we have in the end is relationships and connection and sharing story, getting to know one another. And I love that. I would agree. It's definitely something that we should be pressing into now of all times, but I think that should continue. It shouldn't drop off.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
So great. Well, we've talked about, something great that people can jump into and press into, but what would be the biggest challenge that you would say that's facing indie artists right now, and how can they face it well or overcome it?
Yeah. I think I'm finding an issue in regards to it being clear how we can grow a band. And that comes back down to what I mentioned just before of like, the industry has changed so much. And, pre-pandemic, as I had said, like when I was looking at bands, or when bands were showing us that they were growing and becoming something big, it was, they were getting higher streams, they're getting Spotify playlistings or iTunes playlists. They were getting rotation on radio, and then they were playing big support shows and things like that. So it was almost like we always knew where on the ladder everybody was running up, because if you were playing a support with that band, you must have good music, or like somebody must know you and be paying attention. So that shifted a lot, obviously, because we didn't have live shows. So I've definitely found it really hard to go, okay, well, so how can we prove to industry players that my bands are now ready for these supports, or ready for a booking agent or a record label and things like that? I don't have the answer as to what that is now. Like, what are those indicators? I think, people are looking more towards what's your monthly listeners on Spotify, what playlists are you engaged in, what's your social media like, more so. Like, we're definitely pivoting a lot more into less about shows, because our shows just seem to never like happen, or they get rescheduled a lot, or we just can't rely on that, and like moving it more into a social media realm and trying to find where the band's brand and messaging sort of sits a bit better across all releases, not just the one release, which if you've ever worked with a band, it's really, really hard. Solo artists, a lot easier, but because they're like, the brand is me and I'm not going to like change dramatically, so here you go. Whereas duos and bands, it's just like, sometimes we strategize for a single and I'm like, oh, come on guys, give me something here.
Gotcha. If I was just to wrap that up, you were saying when we can't be playing live, when it's really hard in those external things to grow our band or grow our career and to kind of figure that out, one of the best things that we can do in the middle of that challenge is to really nail your brand, figure out your social media strategy, and look, what you were saying before is building those connections. Would that be what you were kind of saying in that?
Yeah, definitely. I think, more so on that, it's like creating a space spaces where people can look at numbers and can go, that is what will sell. Because there's even a space in Instagram and Facebook now where a band can get big enough to be, having some of the members be influencers and getting, marketing from that and connecting with different spots. So like, that is what will show others that you've come up from your career, when you can start to, build that social media in an authentic way, not in a I've paid for my own bots way.
So cool. I love that. Okay, so that was some challenges, but let's jump into some strategies. So if an artist is wanting to make this Summit really practical and have a download that people can say, okay, this is the tips that I took away from Jaz's interview. I would love sort of anywhere between 5 to 10 strategies or tips or ideas for artists wanting to really kind of start to build up. Maybe they've released 1 or 2 songs. Would love to know what you think would be helpul for them as they get started.
Yeah, the first one is definitely goals. Without a doubt, you need goals, and you need goals from, say, that whole example I gave of like, you know, you're in your 80s, you retire, and you're telling the people at the old folks home what you've done with your life. That's like your top 5 goals of what you want to be able to say, and then all the way down into 10-year goals, 5-year goals, 1-year goal, 6-month goals, and use that to be ambitious. But then also, as you get like lower down into those, 6-month goals, it's like, okay, what's the actual reality of this and where are we sitting? I think there's definitely that is the first one. I would say having a budget and an idea of where you want to be going in the next few years is really helpful. Like budget and timelining is definitely something that we just heavily rely on. And with the clients, my full-time management clients, it's a lot of, we do the timelines and we go, okay, well, we want to get here. And then I, on my own, will go, okay, this is about the budget that we're looking at. Because, sometimes, as we all know, money and worrying about money can sometimes be a hindrance to creativity. But yeah, with the clients that I sort of do my programs with and all that sort of thing, like in my 8-week program, we cover budgeting, timelines, goals, marketing, prepping for a release, finding those third parties. And I think, to add to that list, it's the goals, it's the budget, it's making sure you do have a timeline so that you stick to it. And what's another one? PR. Definitely get PR. I just don't think it's worth doing it by yourself in this day and age. Like, I think there's a lot of arguments 2 and 4, 4 and against 2 and 4, because as you can see, my brain's just like, it's PR no matter what. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of arguments for and against, but I am definitely somebody who's for PR, and I think it is worth the investment. Like, it's somebody's job to day in, day out connect with those media and have a rapport with them and be delivering them good music, and to have them doing that for you, it's so much easier and so much more worthwhile for them to be connecting your music with the industry than you just out of the blue being like, hi, my name's such and such and this is my music and you don't know me, but add me to rotation. Like, just doesn't, I don't think we're in a space now where you can do that, because it's just such a oversaturated, flooded market. You definitely do need PR and a really, really good social media strategy as well.
Okay, I love those. So good, so helpful. Anything else in that space before we jump on to the final couple of questions?
So many. I think it's just like whenever somebody's like, what should I do? I'm like, goals, timeline, like there's always something that you can do. And I think at the moment, what I definitely always come back to people is like, think about how you can build yourself online and do that. Because with all the uncertainty that we have with pandemics, and just even when we're officially not within a pandemic anymore, when we move past that like the online is what's going to stay. And that changed, like the pandemic changed that, I think. So build up anything online that you can, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. So good. Now, Jaz, as we kind of come towards the end, I've just loved chatting to you and getting to know you and hearing your passion and your love for artists and the industry. It's been so positive and wonderful. We're obviously in here the day that we're recording this in Australia is actually Are You OK Day, and so we're talking about mental health, and I'm asking every speaker, how do you manage your own mental health? How are you putting strategies in place to take care of yourself, and whether you do it or not, and whether life is up and down, because it is. But I would love to hear, because I've even learned and gone, oh, I'm taking that idea. That's a really cool thing. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your process in that, and how you're going in that space, because it's got to be just like exercising and eating well, taking care of our mental health is pivotal to, the future of our lives and our career and the health of who we are as people.
Yeah, definitely. I when you sent this through, that I remember going, oh gosh, she really doesn't want to hear my answer to this right now, because it was like I was having the worst week. And yeah, we are where we both live, we are in a lockdown. So as most people know, like that affects your mental health dramatically. I'm not going to sit here and say like I've been doing great. There's definitely highs and lows to my mental health during lockdowns. I'm really lucky I get to keep really busy. I'm the sort of person that if I was not busy, it would not be good for me. But I definitely try to acknowledge when I am sort of hitting my tipping point. For me, being a nanny in the industry, and also in the industry as well, during a lockdown is really hard to listen to that tipping point. But I do try to, if I'm burnt out, overworked, all that sort of thing, I try to listen, try to minimize all the commitments that I have and do the right thing by myself, and take the pressure off myself and the guilt that I tend to put on myself when I don't achieve, I think I'm not achieving things, and just sort of be more realistic with my time. I think that's a really great strategy for me to help my mental health. I actually have taken this week off because in the middle of a lockdown, because I could not handle anymore and I needed that space, and I also needed my business to have that space as well. So I think, yeah, taking the time, even if it is in a lockdown, to just not be doing anything is definitely, it's been so therapeutic and really helped me sort of recharge my batteries, and also for me to focus on the creative side of my business and myself really has been really great, versus telling kids how to spell and having band meetings after 10-hour days. Like, it's just not fun. So yeah, that's how I've been going with my mental health, just making sure I've got self-care going on and taking the time.
That's so good. And look, that's the real, I appreciate your honesty and transparency there, is that sometimes we have really crap weeks, and some days it's really hard to get out of bed. And probably for me, the biggest challenging thing is some days I'm just like, my motivation is so low and I feel like my productivity is low, whereas I would normally get so much more done. And it's just like, for some reason, in the pressure of these lockdowns and the psychological stress of everything that's going on, definitely has been, I've had to just go, all right, that was a day yesterday, whatever that was, today's a fresh day, and there's all new opportunity today to move forward and to connect with beautiful people, to have good conversations, to do the things that bring you life. I love that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I realized this lockdown that I'm definitely an extrovert and I need to connect with people. And when the times when I saw myself not doing so well was when I hadn't connected with, like-minded people who were my own age, not little kids.
Gotcha. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, Jaz. As we kind of round this out, I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about how any of the summit attendees who are interested in connecting with you or finding out what you do, talk about what you offer, especially kind of your 8-week program, how they can engage with you, and what the levels are of being a part of JY Management Group.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to share that. I really appreciate it. love being really accessible to people. So send me a DM, send me an email. I promise if you send me an email saying, hey, I need management, I won't hate you. I'll just maybe roll my eyes, but like reach out and be like, hey, I'm struggling, or hey, I think I'd really love to work with you. What can we do together? I have at the moment, as I said, digital marketing space in my business, which is really great. So working with releases on Facebook and Instagram ads, Spotify, YouTube, all that sort of thing, which has only just started. So it's really exciting for me. But we also offer 8-week programs, which, as I said, covers goals, branding, social media, prepping your release. You get weekly bonuses and content, which is really great. It's like basically my heart and soul into a course. And then following that, we have 3-month programs and things like that. So you're not just doing the 8-week program and then moving on. You're sort of getting that whole experience if you want it. But then I also offer consults on a range of different things. So if you just want to do like an hour one-on-one with me, you definitely can. I can also like consult with you on your release, and I love to see it as like release auditing, where it's sort of like, here's what the industry will actually think about your release before you actually like release it out, which is, I've done that with a few clients now, and it's such an interesting service, because it allows people to go, okay, there's the gap there and there's the gap there, let's fill it and then let's release it. So yeah, I think that's sort of me in a nutshell at the moment. We don't really have the event side to be running, but yeah, follow me on Instagram or Facebook, or move on to the website. I've actually been working on that this week personally, so hopefully it'll look great.
So cool. Well, we'll definitely put all the links in under this video so people can connect and engage and reach out, if they are needing that help and support. And I love that you've got such a broad range of offerings, because you only have a certain amount of time for full-time clients, but there is opportunity to connect one-on-one, and you're actually connected with a whole range of other artist managers, and I'm sure you could pass people on, you're not right for me, but you could work with, that's cool. So you've got so much industry experience, and it's been such a pleasure to connect with you. Thank you so much for being a part of the summit.
Thank you so much for having me. And if you actually are going to add everything into that blurb at the bottom, how about I give you a link to a free checklist for everybody to have a pre-release checklist, so they know exactly what they need to do for a release.
Absolutely, that would be amazing. Love that. Anything type of free checklist that makes it practical and easy to follow. Love that, Jaz. Thank you so much.
It's all good. And have a good day, everyone. I hope you enjoy.